So the results are in for the internal investigation. I got the information yesterday. I got to read over it, and I actually got the documentation this morning. For people that just want a summary, here you go. I'm going to give it to you. Here's the results. We're going to talk about all these results, how we got there, and the specific verbiage and written language in the document now. I went ahead and posted it publicly, so you can take a look for yourself. You can follow along if you want. It's up on Dropbox. You'll see the link in this description. I'll also link the news story that came out last night with our local news. I want to start by saying right now it's not done. If you care about this, if you think that what has happened, if the results are not appropriate, please reach out to the Sheriff's Department. Please reach out to the Sheriff. We're transitioning, so reach out to the future Sheriff as well, and let them know, mainly the future Sheriff, to be honest. I'll put the links and stuff in the description. I'll probably link it here as well on the video. So thank you. If you do that, thank you. I appreciate it. I want this to be done right. I want this to be done correctly. I don't want to have to resort to things like civil suits and stuff. That's not. I want this to be over. I want this to be done. All right, let's dig in. All right, so the first section I want to bring up is a statement near the beginning. Upon contact with Randall, Detective Rowe almost immediately begins using profanity. When the complainant asks him what he's doing, Rowe responds, "What do you mean, what am I doing? You're fucking driving recklessly." Here's the key part. It appears as though Rowe touches Randall in the chest area with his left hand, which appears to be a quick frisk of Randall's front sweatshirt area for weapons. This is an absurd lie. So the sweater I was wearing actually was this sweater right here. He grabbed me by the collar area here, very briefly, as if he was going to do like a takedown maneuver, like legitimately like pull me off my bike, which again was part of the shock and why I said, "What are you doing?" I said that as he grabbed me, which was scary. I mean, I didn't know what the hell was going on. This is a lie. Do people put weapons in their collar area here? What is there to check for weapons here? It makes literally no sense. This is a big problem because this is how avoiding this as being any type of force used against me is going to be how they justify. It's part of the reason they're able to justify the no force was used argument and summarization. This is a huge problem. Rowe eventually reached into Randall's front pocket, removed his wallet, obviously without Randall's consent, and while still holding Randall at gunpoint. Randall clearly states, "That is my wallet." I made the following observations and found additional violations of the GOM, General Owner's Manual. I'm going to link the General Orders Manual in this so that you can again look up for yourself and see all the places where he screwed up. But I'm going to go ahead and just break it out for you here. 5.00.055 searches. Under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So this is what I was talking about when I was talking about my Fourth Amendment rights were violated. This was an illegal search and seizure where he entered my pocket without my consent. So there's a whole list of those exceptions. They break down very specifically why those exceptions don't work here. Rowe was not performing a community caretaking function. Rowe did not have consent to search Randall. Randall was not under arrest, so the search was not custodial. I got a pretty good reading level, but I don't think I've ever read this out loud. Exigent circumstances did not exist. This was not an inventory search of Randall's person. At this point, this did not appear to be another pat-down. Rowe was clearly after his wallet ID. So the excuse that he gave prior, he wasn't able to use here. Although a cursory search for weapons is appropriate in a Terry stop incident, an intrusive search of a person for the purpose of obtaining their identification is not. A Terry stop is like a stop and frisk. We don't have that in Washington State. That's not a legal thing that you can do here. Indeed, Detective Rowe was contacting Randall for a criminal traffic violation. However, I do not believe Randall was under arrest when the wallet ID was taken. Randall was certainly being detained as was appropriate. So basically they're saying if you're under arrest, you might have the ability to search somebody or enter their pockets or things like that for ID. I was not under arrest. I was simply being detained. Detective Rowe claimed in his statement that upon his approach to contact Randall, he saw Randall look in the motorcycle rearview mirror, lean back, and drop his hands to his waist area. Detective Rowe stated that he thought this was an indicator that Randall had seen him and had a weapon. Detective Rowe stated that he did not draw his weapon until he saw these movements by Randall. So this is his statement. This is a lie and is not backed up by fact or witness statements or the video itself, which they state. From examining the video, Detective Rowe contacts Randall approximately 6 seconds after activating his vehicle's emergency equipment. So there are a number of people who thought that he had been chasing me or that I had seen him prior and this was all kind of some big setup. This is confirming that he did not, in fact, activate his emergency lights until he was directly behind me. You can clearly see Detective Rowe's vehicle pull up behind Randall in the reflection of the vehicle in front of Randall. It appears as though Randall notices the flashing lights in the reflection and then looks into the right rearview mirror of his motorcycle. As Randall leads forward to look in the right rearview mirror, you can clearly see the left-hand motorcycle mirror, Rowe approaching Randall with his weapon already out. This is easily visible when observing the video frame by frame and shows that Detective Rowe's actions on the video do not appear to be consistent with his statement. Per witness statements, Detective Rowe had his weapon out immediately on getting out of his vehicle. This was prior to Randall looking into the rearview mirror. The video appears to confirm this. So clarifying what they're saying, he exited his vehicle and immediately drew his gun. Why would you do that? First off, again, this is a lie. You can see in the video that I come to a stop and then I put my vehicle in neutral and I generally glanced at the mirror just to make sure nobody behind me is going to slam into me, which I could have seen his lights if he had them activated, but he didn't. So, and I put my hands at my hips, which is a pretty normal resting position for being on a motorcycle. So it's not even hips, it's thigh area. I didn't change that position until he came up to me, at which my hands go straight up. This is a lie on this document right here. He is lying about his intent. He's using the excuse of force or threat, right? He's backpedaling, and he didn't describe any of this. Again, it's very convenient because the video shows all of this is inaccurate, as well as that he at no point makes any statement about me having a weapon or anything like that. So he lied to the investigators about this, and this is a big problem. This is a big problem with how they came upon their conclusions, is it's based on this lying statement that they acknowledge is a lie. They don't call it that. They say it's not consistent, but that is a lie, and that is a terminatable offense. So he came out, he had his weapon drawn immediately. This is how I know. This is how we know it is a tool used for intimidation, used to cause fear, used to scare me. That's how we know. At no point was he not going to draw that firearm. That's what he wanted to do. General Owner's Manual 6.00.0302 states, firearms shall not be drawn or pointed unless a member has reason to believe their use may be required. Again, some people are confused. You don't draw your firearm unless you're ready to use it, unless you're ready to kill somebody, which is also why the statement of drawing a firearm is not being considered force is absolutely ludicrous. When you have a firearm on you by law enforcement, there's nothing you can do. You can't run. You can't move. As a private citizen, as someone who is not an officer of the law, you have to assume if somebody has a gun drawn on you, you don't want to do anything to get shot. It's force. I can't run. I can't make a small movement even, because we all see what happens when people do that. Even if you're complying with their orders, had I moved into my pocket, I was afraid that I would get shot. And you know what? There's plenty of evidence that that's what could have happened. We have all these examples of people who were either maybe not following orders completely or followed orders and then were shot and killed. And that's what I didn't want to be. This is why drawing a weapon on somebody for a traffic stop, for something that isn't appropriate, is disgusting, because you're putting somebody's life at risk in a real way. Rowe stated that he believed Randall possibly had a weapon, although he still asked Randall numerous times to reach into that same area to retrieve his ID. Again, this is identifying a lie in his statement to the internal investigators about what he did in order to justify his use of force, in order to justify his actions. We can see by the video and his actions that isn't consistent, right? If I had a weapon and he was afraid, why would he tell me to reach into there? Unless you're going to suggest that he was telling me to reach into there in order to shoot me because he wanted me to grab my weapon out so that he could blow me away. I might buy that. I still think that that's a stretch. So either one of those situations, either he's a fucking moron, either he's absolutely stupid and has no idea what he's doing and was asking to be shot because he didn't have his body armor. That comes up later. You can read the internal investigation. He was apparently on his way to get his body armor. He could have been fucking killed if that is what he really wanted to happen. During the entire initial contact, Detective Rowe had Randall at gunpoint. Rowe claimed in a statement that he believed that he was at the low ready position. However, I did not interpret his handling of his firearm to be at the low ready. It appeared as though he was purposely pointing his weapon in Randall's and passing motorist's direction. Per his statement, Rowe does not remember pointing the firearm directly at Randall. This is poor firearm handling and it's obvious training issue for Rowe. So in the first minute and a half, where he literally had the gun on me the entire time, pointed at me, and again, putting me and other people at risk, he's saying that he doesn't remember that. Wow, that's definitely someone who doesn't remember a very obvious detail of this interaction. That's someone I want policing my streets. I mean, does he have a memory disability? Is that why? Maybe my encounter with him is so rote and commonplace for him that it didn't even hit the level of memory. It was very memorable for me. And if this is like something that he does so often that it's just not a big deal, that's also a massive concern. I'm going to include the low ready position they're talking about because I had to look this up, and again, some people were kind of mentioning this. So there was a lot of questions about holding his firearm, how he was doing it. So, again, he did not do it correctly. So the low ready is basically not on me. If he was at low ready, he never would have pointed it at me, which again is part of the massive problem here in this situation. So the first allegation, excessive or unnecessary use of force. Because no actual physical force was used, I find the allegation of excessive or unnecessary use of force to be unfounded. Understandably, Randall felt that having a weapon pointed at him constituted force. This is where we get into the claim where grabbing me by the neck, grabbing me by the collar area, is a search. This is fucking bullshit right here. This is absolute bullshit. And look, if their rules are that drawing a weapon on somebody is not force, that should be changed because that's absolutely ridiculous. Force is anything that you're using to stop someone or detain someone or doing anything. I'm not going to do anything with a gun literally on me. Maybe the argument that they could have is that if he had put it at that low ready position and it was down at his feet instead of directly at my chest, maybe you could make the argument that that's not force. If you put a gun at somebody's chest and then give them instructions like, this is force, I mean, I don't care what the manual says. Like, that's force. That is common sense that anybody can see. Allegation 2, courtesy. Due to the profanity and threats made by Detective Rowe, I found the courtesy allegation be sustained. This is a bullshit claim. Sure, I agree. Okay, yeah. What's the punishment on this? What's the punishment, do you think, on being discourteous to somebody? You think you probably go to, sensitivity training, something like that? 1 day suspension, maybe? This was the last of my worries. While not listed in the follow-up report, I find that Detective Rowe also in violation of GOM 3.00.0152K. Conduct unbecoming means behavior that generally tends to diminish respect for the Sheriff's Department, office, or member, diminish confidence in the operations of the Sheriff's Office. His overreaction to the incident, the use of profanity threats, poor firearm handling, and ensuing public outcry significantly diminish respect for the Sheriff's Office or member, and diminish public confidence in the operation of the Sheriff's Office. I find this additional allegation to be sustained. In my opinion, had there been no video of the incident, any complaint from Randall would have likely been non-sustained. Detective Houck demonstrated within his follow-up that Randall's credibility is in question. Randall's credibility in this specific allegation is moot, however, as the finding for this allegation is based solely upon the behavior of Detective Rowe within the video. So this is emphasizing that again, had there been no video, it would have been my word against his. Nobody would have believed that this is what happened. It is a literally unbelievable thing that there are people out there doing shit like this. I don't believe he's the only one. And then this is also emphasizing that my statements really don't matter. The video speaks for itself. Everything else is irrelevant. What happened prior, what happened during, it's completely irrelevant. Allegation 4, identification as a sheriff's member. Detective Rowe did not identify himself as the police until approximately 30 seconds into the contact, and only after Randall asked him why he was pointing a gun at him. Approximately 20 seconds later, Rowe clarified and stated that he was with the King County Sheriff's Office. A mitigating factor could be that Detective Rowe was overwhelmed and unable to mentally process the situation until he was already committed and an active participant. Detective Rowe stated that upon making the traffic stop, he suddenly realized that he did not have the necessary equipment to conduct a safe stop. In addition, he claimed that he believed Randall to be armed. He shouldn't have ever done this stop. This is why his first reaction should have been to use his radio and contact somebody who could make an effective stop. That should have been his first reaction. Why was he at such mental capacity? Well, we know why. Because this is a road rage incident. Because he was so angry and he was personally offended by whatever I was doing, by my driving, whatever. He was so angry at me that he threw all of his training and all of his caution to the wind and just came at me gun drawn. That is the fact. That is why this happened. That is very obvious. He believed me to be armed. And again, here we get to the lie again, reiterating how things work. This is what they're falling back on. He believed me to be armed. Again, no evidence. At no point does he conduct a pat. At no point does he ask me if I have a gun or a weapon. And maybe that's because I profusely explained that I wasn't armed because I didn't want a fucking gun at my chest. Identification as a sheriff's office member. When wearing an authorized uniform, the uniform itself is sufficient to identify its wearer as King County Sheriff's Deputy. When not wearing the authorized uniform and when taking police action, acceptable identification is the authorized badge and identification card. All members shall provide names, serial numbers, blah, blah, blah when requested. Detective Rowe did have a clip-on badge affixed to his right leg. However, his stance once he had contacted Randall likely prevented Randall from readily seeing it. At the same time, it's likely that Randall concluded that Detective Rowe was associated with law enforcement simply by the fact Rowe vehicle had emergency lighting activated and Randall was being held at gunpoint. I don't feel the assumption that Randall should have known mitigates the necessity for the police officer to identify himself early in a contact such as this. So whether or not I knew, which I basically was just like, there's a guy with a gun on me. I'm going to put my fucking hands up. I can't hear him. God, I'd like to communicate. That would be nice. The big problem is that people around me didn't know, right? It's easy for somebody who is outside the situation to intervene on my behalf. And the fifth allegation doesn't really matter. He had the authority. So let's talk about the use of force. So in their use of force policy statement, any use of force by sheriff's office members must be objectively reasonable. The reasonableness of a particular use of force is based on the totality of the circumstances known by the officer at the time of the use of force and weighs the actions of the officer against the rights of the subject in light of the circumstances surrounding the event. It must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with 20/20 vision of hindsight. There's problems with that in and of itself, but that's what it is right now. The assessment of reasonableness must embody allowance for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second decisions in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving about the amount of force that is necessary in a particular situation. The reasonableness inquiry is an excessive force case is an objective one. The question is whether the officer's actions are objectively reasonable in light of the facts and circumstances confronting them without regard to the underlying intent or motivation. This policy statement is a direct reflection of the Graham v. Connor and addresses the reasonableness of force used. As stated earlier, this incident does not fit neatly into the GOM section 600 because no physical force was actually used. Again, this is why it's a problem, because they're using the fact that he grabbed me, the fact that he put the gun directly to my chest, and they're saying that that's not force. However, Detective Rowe escalated the incident by introducing his firearm at the beginning of the contact with threats and profanity. In reviewing this incident, I did not find Detective Rowe's actions to be reasonable. Thousands of police officers make thousands of traffic stops daily. Some of those stops may warrant an armed approach to the violator, but the majority of them do not. It is not common to contact a run-of-the-mill traffic violator at gunpoint. Detective Rowe unnecessarily escalated this traffic contact by almost immediately drawing his firearm, using profanity upon initial contact, threatening to dump Randall, as this could have been construed as Randall either being pushed down or shot, failing to identify himself as a police officer until after Randall was searched, performing a questionable search on Randall. It's not questionable. The search is illegal. It's against my Fourth Amendment rights. He didn't almost immediately draw his firearm. He immediately drew his firearm. He had made the decision to do that prior to contacting me. I've included here some of the snippets that they put in here that kind of show that there's kind of the pattern. This is the one. These are some of the snippets that the Stranger article talked about related to his previous conduct and problems. There's no formal training for detectives on how to conduct traffic stops when in an unmarked capacity. Instead, supervisors rely on employees' past experience and common sense. Detective Rowe stated in his interview that he saw the GoPro on Randall's helmet as he was making his approach to Randall. Despite the possibility having the contact memorialized on film, Rowe began the contact with threats and profanity. This is another lie. It is not believable in the slightest that he saw my GoPro. It is 100% not believable, and you can see by the video that once he does realize it eventually after he puts his gun off me, that's when things change. That's when things get significantly more cordial. The fact there's no formal training on how to conduct traffic stops in an unmarked capacity is terrifying. It seems like if there's no training, you literally shouldn't do it unless it's the last resort, like you are stepping into an immediately dangerous and violent situation. This guy is an 18-year veteran. Whatever his past experience and common sense is, it's garbage. It's not unreasonable to expect employees to treat traffic violators with dignity and respect. Detective Rowe is an 18-year veteran and should have known to act in a more polite and reasonable manner. Yeah, he should have known to be more polite and reasonable. There's a lot of things he should have known. So let's talk about lying. What are the consequences of lying? Because he lied to save his own skin in a variety of situations in this report, in this investigation. So what are the consequences of lying? Provably, again, they identify all of this in the report. It's not even my subjective view. This is objectively a lie in their own reporting. Serious misconduct. Causes for dismissal. Any sustained serious misconduct or any misconduct involving dishonesty will result in dismissal from the sheriff's office, unless there are mitigating circumstances to justify lesser discipline. Violations of these rules will be considered serious violations of the core values of King County Sheriff's Office. Making a false or fraudulent reports or statements, committing acts of dishonesty, or inducing others to do so. And E is failure to cooperate in a sheriff's office administrative investigation. So in my first video, I talked about how what I wanted was just for him to not be in a capacity to be able to put a gun to somebody's chest the way he did me. So either sitting behind a desk or just not having a firearm, I don't know, but something, right? Or at least, or learning his lesson. I don't believe that that's the case anymore. Now I know that he's committed a lie in this investigation in order to save himself. Now I don't believe that's the case. I believe this is somebody that shouldn't be on the streets. This is not somebody that should work for the King County Sheriff's Department anymore. Somebody who would lie to save themselves. Somebody who would do something so inappropriate, so dangerous, and then lie to save his own skin. That's not the type of people I want enforcing my laws. I want the best people. I want the smartest people. I know there are great people out there. I want more of them out there. I don't want the really bad people putting those people at risk with their terrible actions, with their dangerous actions, with actions that are going to bring ire to the rest of the good police officers. I don't think this is right. Again, if this is frustrating to you, if this is disappointing to you, please contact the Sheriff's Department. Please let them know how you feel. You can point them to this video. You can do whatever. I gave you the links to the General Owner's Manual. I gave you the links to the IA report. There's still time now. But you know what? If this is 10 years down the road and this is still up and you're still mad about it, please do it anyway. If this goes through the way it is and he simply gets 10 days suspension or less, that's also possible. They could override and go less. We didn't get justice. Nothing happened. It's going to be proof that there is no accountability for police anywhere for pretty much anything, which to an extent we already knew. But one more piece of evidence. Thanks.